Welcome to Speaking with Andrea. We are so glad to have you joining us today. I just want to tell you today's show is a very special show for me. The title of the show is Celebrating the Holidays While Grieving. And you've heard it said so many times. We are here at Christmas time and it's the most wonderful time of the year. But for so many people, they are hurting because they're grieving. They've lost someone special and close to them. And many are wondering, how do I get through the holidays while grieving? And so on today's show, we are going to help, share ideas and suggestions on how that's possible. But we'll also tackle the whole topic of grief broadly and death, because we all know that death is, in fact, a part of life. So my guests are coming from Hospice of the Piedmont, and these ladies are very special to me for various reasons. And one, because initially we were supposed to do this show back in September, and we had been discussing it back in the early spring. But in June of 2010, in fact, June 17, I lost my mother suddenly and unexpectedly. And so I am on my journey as we speak, and so this show is going to be just as helpful for me as someone else out there who's grieving. And I want to go ahead and introduce my guests. I have four ladies coming from Hospice of the Piedmont, and my first guest I'd like to introduce is Denise Myers-Kirshner. Denise earned her master's degree of nursing with Denise Myers-Kirshner earned her master's of nursing degree with a psychiatric mental health specialty from the University of Pittsburgh. She has spent over 30 years in program administration and direct care of patients with mental health diagnoses in both inpatient and community mental health settings. Her experience ranges from children to geriatrics and individual, family, and group therapies. Denise has been with Hospice of the Piedmont since October 2006 as Director of Counseling Services. And next to Denise, we have Erin Webb. Erin is the bereavement coordinator at Hospice of the Piedmont. She has been in this position for over 4 years since she began her employment in the summer of 2006. Erin received her master's degree in social work from Fordham University in Manhattan. Prior to being employed at Hospice of the Piedmont, Erin was a hospice social worker for 5 years in New York. Erin is now working with families after the death of loved ones, providing support through counseling, support groups, and other services. And to my left, I have Lori Hahn-Bama. Lori has a BS in nursing and an MS in psychiatric mental health nursing from the University of Michigan. She has nursed in most clinical areas with extensive time in intensive care, pediatrics, and psychiatry. She has 38 years of nursing experience, including teaching nursing for more than 9 years at the Universities of Michigan and Virginia, and at Piedmont, Virginia Community College. Lori has been, I wanted to call you Erin. Lori has been a public health nurse serving at-risk families with young children and is currently a bereavement counselor and coordinator at Hospice of the Piedmont, working with adult bereaved and their families. She also has the responsibility of the Journeys program for children, teens, and their families, and we will be discussing that program as well on today's show. And last but not least, we have Karen Rotzloff. Did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Karen is the Director of Development, and she joined Hospice of the Piedmont in September of 2007 to lead its fundraising initiatives and to share the hospice story in our community. Prior to her tenure with Hospice, Karen worked for more than 13 years at the University of Virginia School of Nursing. There, she coordinated many fundraising and alumni affairs efforts and served as editor of the school's magazine and editor of Mr. Jefferson's Nurses, the only published history of the school. She graduated from the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, and earned her master's degree in education from the University of Virginia in 2008. Ladies, I want to welcome you all to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As I stated, when we were supposed to do the show before, and I was speaking with Jackie Gamonch about it, I knew about hospice. I had heard of hospice. I was familiar with you all just a little bit. But I was sharing with you all before we started the show that what you all do now has a different meaning for me now, the services and programs that you all provide, because now I'm on my own grief journey and having lost my mom in June. So I appreciate that much more the services you provide and have that much more of a heart of compassion for those that are grieving and are suffering loss. And I shared with you earlier, I would much rather not be in this position,
Right.
but it's where I am. And I'm glad that I have this platform where we could come on and talk about death, grief, and celebrating, you know, those first anniversaries, birthdays, holidays. So before we get deep into talking about those issues, let's give our viewers a little background about hospice. And when we think of hospice, we think of terminally ill patients, but you all also provide extensive bereavement services. So before we talk about that, let's give our viewers a little background of the history of Hospice of the Piedmont.
Well, Hospice of the Piedmont was founded in 1980 by volunteers, but the hospice movement in this country really dates back to the 70s. There was a woman from London who was a doctor, a chaplain, and a social worker, I believe, Dame Cicely Saunders, who visited this country after founding hospices in England. And then she visited here, and the first hospice was established in Yale University School of Nursing. She later in the 70s visited Charlottesville and spoke at UVA Medical Center Hour, the same woman, Dame Cicely Saunders. And there was a group of local volunteers who became volunteers at that time who were committed to the idea of having hospice in this community, that they knew this was a different model for the end of life, and that they wanted to be sure that this community had that option. And those volunteers really worked very hard over several years to establish us in 1980. We were founded completely as a volunteer agency at that time, and we have grown significantly in the 30 years since.
Yeah, having just celebrated your 30th anniversary this year.
Yes.
That is tremendous. Does the fact that people are living longer, did that have something to do with it?
Well, I think what has happened in this country, in particular this culture, we've medicalized everything, you know, and especially from birth to death. And what I've heard said very well by others, but I find it so compelling, is that just as we sort of took back childbirth from the medical system in a sense, that people now, many people choose to have their babies at home and those sorts of things. We really are trying to reclaim, the hospice movement is trying to reclaim death and bring it back where it really started. I mean, years and decades ago, people took care of the dying in their homes, and the dying process was something everyone was exposed to, from children to adult. And then it all became part of the medical system, and it moved completely to hospitals and nursing homes. And really, hospice is about helping families reclaim that very important period of life and supporting each other through it.
How was it received as it was coming out? Were people kind of, no, you know, let's keep it at the hospital, or were they welcoming the idea? Yes, let's bring death back home.
I think there are different ways of looking at that. I mean, way back in ancient Rome and Greece, when the hospice as a concept was practiced, it was because life and death were viewed as on the same continuum. But around the 1800s, when medicine really began to be research-oriented and physicians began to look at the idea of curing disease because they could, the shift in medical care really then became to hospitals. And not curing illness was often viewed as a failure. And so when individuals reached the end of life and there was no possibility to reclaim that life through medical efforts, you looked at institutions like nursing homes, and that's when the sphere of the idea of going to a hospital and dying or going to a nursing home and dying really began to get its roots, way back as early as the 1700s and 1800s. So the reclaiming of the hospice movement has been aimed at getting individuals to be able to make informed choices about what they want at the end of life, rather than succumbing to what could possibly be done through extraordinary medical interventions.
And providing that quality care.
Providing quality of care that is symptom-free and not just pain, but on all aspects of the whole human being.
And you all, hospice serves about how many patients? Are they called patients?
We call the hospice patients that we serve in their homes, in their residences, patients. In the bereavement end, we call them clients.
Clients, okay.
On a daily basis, we have an average 200 people in our care just in the hospice program. But we have a program before hospice called Transitions, which is a non-medical supportive program, and there's around 140 patients a day in that program. And then through the bereavement support and other programs, Piedmont Palliative Care, we actually on any given day, there are around 450 people in our care.
And what's your Transitions program?
Transitions is a non-medical supportive program for folks who have been diagnosed with a serious illness. They're not ready for hospice care necessarily, or they choose to continue seeking curative care, but they need extra support. So we have case managers on staff who are very experienced in helping people connect with resources in the community. And they can also be assigned we have almost 200 volunteers with our organization. One of our volunteers can be assigned to that client to help get them to their appointments, or to give their caregiver a break during the day, or just take them out for lunch, or whatever that family would like. And that's the beauty of the whole program, from transitions through bereavement. It is really about what that family and their client and that patient want, and we customize everything we do around what their goals are.
And you all serve a huge area, correct? 9 counties, I believe you said. Yeah. In addition to the city of Charlottesville, the counties of Albemarle, Augusta, Buckingham, Fluvanna, Greene, Louisa, Madison, Nelson, and Orange. And another hospice fact is you all are the 2nd largest hospice provider in the state of Virginia.
Yes.
Yeah, that is, I don't know if that's good. You know, I was going to say that's good, but I guess the fact that you all are here in the communities providing that service is a good thing. Is a good thing. How do people typically find out about you all?
A wide variety of ways. Word of mouth has been the primary motivator for a lot of folks. Once you've had a hospice experience, you tend to tell other people how meaningful it is and what a difference it is. But we also we have a speakers bureau now where we can go out to any organization, provide an overview of our services or specific talks about our services. We have newsletters. We are currently in a community education campaign for the first time in our history. Many people may have seen some of those education spots on television or in print to try and really, we know we're only serving a little under 30% of people who could use hospice. I mean, death and dying is part of our life experience, and it happens regardless.
Yeah.
And less than 30%, though, are taking advantage of hospice care, those who could have hospice care. So what we believe is we really have this wonderful program that we want more people to know about, and we're just
Why do you think people don't take advantage of it?
There's probably a lot of reasons, but people are afraid to talk about death and dying. People don't tend to plan ahead and discuss with their family what they'd like to do. One thing we can do very well for people is help them with advanced planning so that you have those conversations while you are coherent and can share with people what you would like at the end of your life. But there's a lot of different reasons, I think.
And there is a misconception, perhaps, that you have to be referred by a physician.
Oh.
Ultimately, your physician needs to be involved in you receiving hospice care because of the certification that's necessary. But any family member, any person who's been diagnosed with a serious illness can call Hospice of the Piedmont and get information about what qualifies them and what kind of services they could obtain, what kind of support's available to them. So I think that's a factor too, is that often people don't realize that they can make the call themselves. And physicians often are not willing or anxious to have those conversations about end-of-life care with people. So if they're waiting for their doctor to have that conversation, they might wait a long time. They should pick up the phone and call.
And that's something else I do want to add. A lot of people wait. They think hospice is only for the last few days of life.
That was going to be a question of mine. Yeah. So you could be immediately diagnosed with some sort of cancer. It may down the road be in remission, but you can still call hospice at the first diagnosis?
What we tell people is get information so you know your options and plan for whatever outcome. And we hope, of course, that that's as long a life as someone wants to live, but we are there to help, and we would like the full benefit of the interdisciplinary hospice model can really be seen when we have more time.